Welcome to Snack Chat. That's Mark.
And that's Troy. What is Snack Chat? It's when Troy and I pick any two people we want inside IBM to inspire not only an unusual pairing, but interesting conversation that we wouldn't otherwise normally have in our daily work routines.
Like getting out of the office to a coffee shop, or maybe even a bar, where we can relax a bit and have a fun discussion with each other. All right, let's do this.
I'm gonna go on this tangent here for just a minute, and setting aside travel advice, which is probably critical for early in your career. Go back, Shannon, take me back to a brand new consultant, whether it's yourself or someone like you. If they're coming into the world, into their career, what are some of the advice elements you'd give them?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that because I used to do the intro talk for GBS to many of our CBDers when they were called CBDers, now called associates, and we'd have 100 of them or 50 or 100 in the room, and I would inevitably get the question of what advice do you have for me to be successful? And it's funny, the advice I gave was a little off. It was like the first thing I would say is you learn to be really good at what you don't want to do. And that means, early in your career, you got this whole vision of what your job's going to be like, and you're so anxious to get to the coolest project in the world. And then you get a phone call and they want you to go, code on an energy and utilities client, which, by the way, that was my first project as a consultant. And so I tell that story. And it was the last thing I wanted to do, but what I did is I was like, okay, well, if I get really good at doing that, then I get a good chance to get a great project, get a good reputation on the next project. And the quicker you learn that it's a marathon and not a sprint, being really good at what you don't want to do makes people call on you when there is something really cool to do. That was the first thing I said. And then the second thing I said was, as a partner, if I call a new consultant, I can tell within about 30 seconds if I want you on my project. And they're like, you can assess our skills that fast? I was like, no, but I can assess your attitude that fast.
Yes.
And if I call and want you on the project and you're eager and you want to be on the project, I'm going to bring you on, and then I'm going to find cool stuff for you to do. If you're hesitant and finding a million reasons why you're not the right person because it's not the kind of work you want to do, the interview's kind of over before it starts. And so those were the two pieces of advice that I gave them early on. I mean, there's a million other things around, networking and all the other stuff that we tell them, but those were the two nuggets that I would always share with the teams.
Hey, Sherry, we're gonna throw over to you as well. Go back. What are some elements of advice have you got starting out in my career?
Okay. Number one, don't make excuses. Get uncomfortable. You have to grind it out. And I still wake up every morning with that same intensity that I had when I was a lot younger and had a hell of a lot more energy to take on the day. I think what I find sometimes is people let blind people proofread the vision of their life. And you really can't do that. So don't ask people for permission to be who you were born to be. When you wake up, be bold, really go to the edge, push yourself to the edge, but take the time for self-care too. That's something that I struggled with. I still struggle with that. I still don't make enough time for myself and prioritize my own health. I'm getting better at it. I think COVID has helped. But there's a lot of people in the world. And if you really love what you do and you try your best and you wake up and you give your all, it shines through. And I think that that's similar to you, Shannon. I hire for attitude. I've recently made some new hires. Some of these people don't know much about supply chain. I'll help bridge that gap.
That's okay. Yeah.
I want somebody that is going to wake up. I'm high energy. I'm passionate. I love what I do. I literally wake up and say, thank you, God, for giving me another day to do what I was born to do and placed on this earth to help others in their journey. And if I meet somebody else that has that same intensity, that's a human soul on fire, and we're going to do epic shit for IBM clients. That's what I want on my team. All this other like conceptual, I'm about to graduate from Harvard on May 27th. Top of my class, second master's degree. If you want to know about supply chain and sustainability, I'm your girl. I can bridge that gap. Totally hire for attitude. Attitude, grind, not afraid to just like, we're going to lock down and we're just going to like, this is our life for the next week. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that.
Like that
Yeah,
intensity.
yeah.
I love that. Like I lit when someone comes to me and they say, this is impossible, I raise my hand. It's like that
love it.
fire. That's what you
Love
need.
it.
When you're young, when you're entering the consulting world, push yourself to be uncomfortable. That's the number one piece of advice. Listen, I don't care what school you graduate from. Ivy, whatever. Ivy League, top of your class, so what? When you show up, you have an obligation to give your all, no matter what you're doing, whether you're in consulting, in your personal life. And a lot of that, I think, some people, they graduate and they think the golden gates of heaven are going to open and they're going to like walk into a six-figure salary and like everything's going to be handed to them. So if I meet somebody who's right out of college and they have that mentality, we're like, we're going to do epic shit. Let's go. We don't care what the mountain is. We're climbing it. That's what I hire for. That's what I lean into.
I love it.
that
I'm going to
is
come work for
awesome.
you. I love it. No,
Yeah.
that is
That's
that is
awesome.
that is real. And I wish more junior consultants or even just people entering the professional world realize that, right?
But there's another
it's,
side of this, Mark, that Shannon and Sherry obviously do this right. There's two kinds of leaders, right? Or named leaders. There's the kind like you two that recognize that energy and that power that can come from the younger generations that's coming up as employees and associates. And then there's kind of like the yeah, youngster, go get me these printouts and go grab me a coffee, right? And those leaders could use a little mentorship on how they're missing
Amen.
this awesome resource that can help them. The creativity, the energy. I'm in my 40s and I'm tired too. Like the energy some of these folks have, like, give me that problem, I'll go solve it for you. Right? The hardest problem you have on a project or a client. I just think
That's
there's
right.
a lot of leaders that could use some of that coaching that you two already have.
Yeah, we
I,
don't like
I
stank leaders.
no, and I
No,
if you
not at
guys have,
all.
I'm reading Adam Grant's book, and he talks
Which
about
one?
the phrase the hippo. It is where is it? Think Again.
Yeah.
It's literally sitting right here. He talks about the notion of a hippo, which is the highest paid person in the room or highest paid person in the organization, and how they over-index because they should spout wisdom. I've seen it time and time again when you have somebody who has that passion and that fire and says, I want to kill it. And often they've gone and done something and they bring it back and say, hey, does this work? Having that attitude, having that passion supersedes that. And I think leaders need to understand that sometimes it's not about your paycheck or your role in leading and everything else. Sometimes it's sitting back and listening to see the magic that comes forward. And that should come from anyone. Sherry, I love the word obligation that you shared. You have an obligation to show up. It's not just because you're getting a paycheck. It's not just because you have a title and a role. It's because you're obligated to bring your passion for yourself, for your team, for your clients. I love that.